All right. So I don't know about you guys, but I've had enough. I'm about done with this country. I don't think it can be salvaged at this point. Anybody who thinks that they won't invoke the draft here or in the United States because we've somehow evolved ethically beyond that ever happening and they would never do something that was such an egregious infringement on our rights and freedoms, they're going to do exactly what they are doing in Ukraine. And if you don't comply, you're going to jail. You know, I've been kind of following the Ostrich cull fiasco here in British Columbia, Canada, but I wasn't following it too closely, but it had my support. I supported the farmers, of course, because I think, as usual, it's government overreach, imposing their one-dimensional blanket mandates instead of just using some common sense, applying a bit of nuance, and tailoring the response to the specific event in question. But instead, of course, because the government are wholesale industrial mass murderers, they decided to just kill all 330 ostriches in the nighttime and to the sound of gunshots to the owners who were nearby. Of course, the RCMP did this under the cover of dark. And they decided to use firearms for some reason. I'm sure there was another weapon that they could have done this better with. But that video really just got me very concerned. Because I want you to just take stock of what's going on in this fucking country right now. We got a situation where you can get a letter in the mail and your land can be reappropriated by some tribal council or whatever it is. I love the indigenous people. I think that the indigenous people need to unify with the freedom-loving people in this country because then you'll know who the real enemy is. But that's bullshit, if I'm being quite frank about it. They're going to take your guns, okay? They're going to take our voice with the internet. They've already put the bills in motion in order to do that, so that they control what shows up in your algorithm, what constitutes news and what constitutes editorializing. They locked us down for who knows how long, and if you didn't pay a certain amount to get tested every 3 days, well, you had to take that shot, but it was voluntary, right? Just like the gun buyback is voluntary. Now they're talking about taking the internet. They're going to kill your animals because now the precedent has been set with the Supreme Court that if any of this avian flu gets in your backyard, well, they can just come and kill your animals, right? Even if they're very rare, exotic creatures, which are not quite endangered, but there's only 150,000 of these things on the planet, okay? So these are a rare bird, all right? They're going to let the criminals run riot and do whatever they want. You can't defend yourself. They're going to sell off all our gold at the lows. This is anarcho-tyranny, and it's only going to get worse. We're sitting on one of the second biggest land masses in terms of countries. We have the most resources in the world, probably next to Russia. We have the third most oil, okay? We have, conversely, the highest debt. We have, per capita, we pay some of the highest taxes in the world. Everything is expensive. Most of the infrastructure is subpar or just plain outright sucks. The government's running, like $70 billion deficits every year, and the deficits are expected to grow, okay? So why do we think that this situation is going to get any better? I mean, this is fucked up. And if you look on a map on Google Earth, all of the good land, all of the good crown land, you can't own it, right? It's all in the hands of the crown, okay? And I'm not even going to get talking about the cultural stuff because that's a very contentious issue, and unfortunately, it brings out the worst of some people, but there's that too, okay? So the interesting thing about this ostrich cull bullshit, where they called 330, again with the numerology, always with the numerology, Anyways, so there was 2 ostriches that were dead and they tested positive for H5N1. So apparently because of the World Health Organization's mandate, of which we're a part, they have this stamping out policy, okay? And so this is aligned with the WHO's animal health rules. And so basically, once any bird on the premise is infected, everyone's got to go. They can't even do the testing. Testing survivors, they say, would delay the 48 to 72-hour cull window and risk virus mutations or trade bans. 48 to 72 hours. This thing dragged on in the courts for, I don't know, how much? Was it 9 months? All right? So just applying common sense, just in that instance alone, would have likely seen some other sort of solution, which would not have been as rage-inducing. I don't know, it's something about animals, because they're so innocent, that it just evokes more feelings of anger, because you know they're going to do that to us too. They're going to probably engage in that level of industrial mass murder. And quite frankly, at this point, I don't have any faith in law enforcement to defy these orders. I don't. They're spending $70 billion more than they have every year. You don't think they're going to throw an extra couple billion to make sure that you are completely disarmed and docile and obsequious, bootlicking conformist who lives locked down in the cities, wholly dependent on the supply chain, like a submissive little bitch NPC? That's what they want. Sorry. So they're saying that the reason why they had to do this, right, is because of trade. Because the Chinese, they wouldn't want our poultry if, we had this avian flu lingering around. So, of course, we got to cater to the Chinese. Then I looked it up, and apparently we don't ship any chicken to China at all. It's other types of birds. And apparently there has been a ban in place with China, and I believe it's South Africa. Now, we do some business with them. It's about $135 million, which, in Canadian dollars, that ain't much nowadays, in the grand scheme of things, considering most of the chicken and the poultry we export is to the United States. That's where most of the business is. And that's to the tune of $1.5 billion. Now, the CFIA, in their court filings, they repeatedly stated that if they don't cull these birds fast, that the U.S. would revoke regionalization and ban all Canadian poultry. That was the threat that they made, okay? Now, the United States, however, never said this at all. In fact, there was not a real U.S. demand in place to do this. The U.S. didn't say anything about it. They weren't going to ban any poultry. So we did this to arguably appease the Chinese and the South Africans, I guess, to the tune of $135 million, which seems really ridiculous when you think about it. Now, we know that the WHO gets a lot of money from the Chinese, and I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole because I don't know enough about it. But I know that if the government is doing this sort of indiscriminate imposition of a mandate like this when times are good, imagine what they're going to do when times get bad. And you could tell that all of those cops, right, they didn't even want to be on camera, but they knew they kind of had to be. They didn't approve of what they were doing, but they did it anyways. They were just following orders. Like 50% of the people in the Stanley Milgram experiment who shocked the participant in that experiment to death. If you're not familiar with the Milgram obedience experiments, they set up a test scenario where a person would administer shocks to who they thought was another person in the other room, but it was just a recording. And they were with an experimenter, and they could be coaxed into essentially shocking this person in the other room to death, so long as the experimenter told them that they wouldn't be responsible for it, that the experimenter themselves, the scientist with the clipboard who is telling them to shock this imaginary participant more, that they wouldn't be responsible for it. And so people will do, and I think there were certain conditions in which 90% of people complied, okay? Now, compliance went down the more the person was in plain view, or the more of a connection you had with the person. This is why they do it in the dark at night. This is why the whole remote drone-based warfare is very dehumanizing. And so I'm very concerned that we're going down a real dangerous road here, and the precedent has now been set. This is in an environment when there is no Emergency War Powers Act being invoked. So just imagine what these guys are going to do. Imagine what they're going to try to get away with when the shit really hits the fan. And considering they have no plan, considering they've encouraged this lifestyle of dependency on the just-in-time delivery system, considering they discourage preparedness, they stigmatize preparedness and self-reliance, and just thinking independently in general, the situation that they're going to have to deal with when all goes to hell is going to be far beyond their capability to mitigate. So I don't know what to do at this point, because I've been thinking about moving to the United States, to be honest, but at the same time, I know that they got their own form of anarcho-tyranny that's going to emerge there as well, but at least it'll be the wild, wild west instead of some feudalistic, what would you call it, it's almost like a hedonistic authoritarianism, where they're going to give you as much stuff as they can to keep you distracted while locking it down and just taking away your rights and abilities one move at a time. But they're going to make it so that you amuse yourself to death and just completely exhaust your dopamine receptors with the most mindless shit. They're perfectly fine with you sitting there doom scrolling all day doing absolutely nothing, but don't take action. So I don't know, man. Unless we have a real... I hope that this inspires something in people. I really do. Because we need a change. We should be one of the most prosperous nations on earth. And we can do it in a way which is very environmentally sustainable. We can do it in a way that respects everybody's desire to express themselves in however they want, without encouraging things that are antithetical to just growth and prosperity and having a healthy set of morals and ethics in our society. We can encourage families. We can encourage a mindset of self-discipline and mutual respect, where it's not just about the paper chase. It's not just about keeping up with the Joneses. It's about actually building something that is amazing. And we could do that. We have everything we need in this society to do it, but we don't. And it almost makes me wonder, who is really in control of this country? You really got to think about that. Who is really, because it's like we have everything. We have it all. We have everything we need. We got the brains. We got the resources. We have the infrastructure to get started. You know, we could have an amazing society. But it's just run by a bunch of fucking selfish idiots. And it's not going to get any better. It's like they're just stringing us along until day X comes, and that's when they're going to kick in our doors and say either you go fulfill whatever sort of work order we have for you, or go to the front lines, or you go to jail, go to the gulags, or you go to some work camp or something like that. That's what it's going to be. It's not ancient history. It's right now. It's happening right now. And I know some people sensationalize that sometimes, but it's very pernicious the way they just subtly chip away. They chip away at these rights, and they continuously take more, and they never relinquish control, ever. And so the only thing we can do as individuals, without starting some kind of movement, and the reason why I don't have a lot of faith in that is because I know there's just too many ways that they can be subverted at this point. They can be undermined, they can be co-opted, they can be... So the only thing we can do as individuals is get ourselves ready for when they drop the hammer on us. And it's becoming increasingly harder to do so, because if you really want to insulate yourself and your community against what's coming, you really have to be well integrated. You have to know your neighbors. You have to be ready when that knock on the door comes to send your children off to war, whatever it is they have planned for us. You need to be unified as a community, because that's the only way change is going to happen. It was birds this time. And not just any birds, right? Like, these are pretty exotic creatures. These are a rare specimen. And it was birds this time. It might not be birds next time. And people are going to say, oh, that's alarmist and this and that. And we would never do such a thing. They're doing it. It's the same thing when you take a Ukrainian guy who's delivering a pizza and you yank him off the street and you throw him in a minivan. And I know there's probably some viewers who have no idea what I'm talking about. This is what they're doing. That's forced conscription. And with such a high casualty rate, you're probably going to die. Okay? So if they can do all this stuff to you, if they can take half of what you make, if they can take your land, take your guns, take your voice, lock you down, pretty soon they're just going to start, sterilizing people probably. But if they can do all that, you don't think that they can't conscript you and send your ass to the front? Of course they're going to say, oh, don't worry, you're just going to be in the back, you're going to be in the reserves, we're not going to actually send you. Sure. Right? Again, it's insidious. It's mission creep. It's always gradual with these guys. They're going to do it. It's the same thing. It's just on a different, you don't see it, right? Like, you might as well just take all the Ukrainian guys, take them out back, and put one in their head, because that's what they're doing. They're doing exactly the same thing to those Ukrainians, and the Russians are doing it too, right? They're conscripting soldiers for that war. But people think that that can't happen in Western democracies. It happens. It happened in Vietnam. Right? 50,000 guys who probably didn't want to go and fight a war died. Right? So it'll happen again. It will. Nothing has fundamentally changed in our human nature whatsoever. In fact, I'd almost say it's gotten much, much worse. And our resistance mechanisms are far less. So I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do at this point. I really don't. I mean, I'm doing the best I can by trying to get myself positioned for what's coming. But I don't think it'll ever be enough. I think eventually everybody's going to have to make a choice. We're all going to have to make a choice at some point. Whether it's the commissionaires, the cops, whatever paramilitary outfit you serve, private contractors. Time is going to come when you're going to have to defy an order, or you're going to be on the ass end of history. We're all going to have to make that choice someday. And that's the day when you'll know that whether or not you're a coward or whether you're somebody who stood for something. because most of my audience, 35 to 45, you probably have kids, and some of you have grandkids. It's our kids that are going to be sent off to fight this war. Okay? And I don't want that to happen. I don't think this war should be fought. What war? World War III. The one that they're planning right now. The one that Europe's getting ready for. The one that the Taiwanese are getting ready for, that the Australians are getting ready for, that the Canadians want to expand the military from 30,000 to 400,000. How do you think they're going to do that? Do you think they're going to get 370,000 people to sign up? The only people that are going to get to sign up are probably the ones who want citizenship, because they've created a bunch of servile automatons who have no interest in serving their country. I mean, we can't even win a World Series when everything was going perfectly well, right? Maybe that's why I'm so depressed about this stuff, because the Blue Jays lost. Not that I even really care, that's the thing, but, you know, it was the icing on the shit sandwich this year. Sorry to give you such a depressing video on a Friday, but this is what we have to deal with, okay? This is the depressing state of affairs. And I don't think, unfortunately, these ostriches are going to be martyrs. They got a video out of me, but I don't think that it's going to really amount to much. Call me cynical, but it just seems like a perpetual downward spiral with brief moments of resistance. And it's always too late, and it's always co-opted, and you know, the trajectory is quite clear at this point. You need to be ready to move at a moment's notice, because something is really wrong. Really, really wrong in this country. And I don't know what it is exactly, but we're being set up for something really, really bad. Is it the Chinese? Is it that we still live under the monarchy? Is it just some branch of our corrupt government, or one wing of the political spectrum? Is it some special interest group controlling everything? Is it, you know, who knows who it is? But all we know is that our rights and privileges are eroding day by day by day. And it seems like there's a bunch of people who are perfectly content accepting that. And there's a lot of people who just came to the country. They don't really speak great English, and so they don't really know any different, right? And so they don't really understand how things used to be. And so they kind of just accept things as the way they are. They don't put up much resistance because, you know, they don't want to hurt that application for a permanent residency. And so all these things, this confluence of factors, are pretty grim. And this is why you got to be the best possible version of yourself you can be. Quote Elliot Hulse, always give credit where credit is due. He was the one who coined that phrase. But you do, you really do. You got to be the best version of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and even socially, as much as we don't want to do it. Getting in with your neighbors, okay? Because when they come to grab you, and the great example is in Ukraine, when the guys in the white bus or the white van with the masks on, when they come to grab a guy, if there's enough people who fight back in the moment, they back off, right? If they take the path of least resistance. So you got to get in good with your communities. And it's a tough thing for us preppers. We're independently minded. We don't like being told what to do, and we don't like politics. Unfortunately, it's either that or off to the gulag or the trench. Pick one. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.